Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here, and welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. I'm Mo Wright, Chair of the Board of Trustees and President Rama, and I'm so glad that you've come to share with us today. For the last 40 years, the Columbus Metropolitan Club has been leading the community's conversation. Now, I'll tell you, I rushed in today, and I was wondering where all the people were here. And apparently there's an election going on in Columbus for mayor. I had no idea that was happening. Apparently these guys are running. I think it's Mike Thompson, maybe. No. Okay. Apparently there's an election, so we thank you for being here with us to discuss these candidates and these important issues. Today's forum, Mayoral Candidates Conversation, kicks off CMC's political season, which is sponsored by Hannah News and the Ohio Farm Bureau Federation. And today's particular forum is also joined in support by Carlisle, Packton, and Murphy, along with the Franklin County Farm Bureau. Join me in thanking our sponsors for their generous support. We have a slight change today from our normal format. Questions today will be submitted in writing. You will find in your forum flyer a piece of paper. You must include both your name and your question on your piece of paper. If your name is not there, unfortunately, we will not be able to pose your question to our candidates today. Members of the CMC Program Committee will begin to collect them about midway through the discussion today, and the best question for content and relevance will be read aloud by a Program Committee member and posed to our candidates. Now, allow me to introduce the candidates for the mayor of our great city. Joining us today, currently the President of Columbus City Council, we have Andrew Ginther. And he is opposed by currently the Sheriff of Franklin County, Mr. Zach Scott. Our host today, certainly a friend to CMC and the host of Columbus on the Record, Mr. Mike Thompson, will be our moderator for today. He will control the flow of the conversation and give us instructions from here. Mike, the stage is yours.
All right, thank you, Mo. Thank you all for coming. I'll also thank the candidates. I don't know how many of these have you done, how many of these you have done during this campaign, but I think it's great that you're willing to talk with each other on the same stage numerous times. It serves us all, so thank you very much. A few basic rules. Each side will have a minute for an opening remark. That was determined by a coin flip a few minutes ago. After that, it'll basically be a conversation. I'll ask them questions, give them chances to rebut. There's roughly 1 minute time limits for the answers and the rebuttal, but we'll be kind of loose on that. We will take questions from the audience, and then at the end, each candidate will have a closing statement in reverse order, or in the same order as the opening statement. So the person who has the first word will give way to the other person for the last word at the end of the debate. And by coin flip, Andrew Ginther has the first opening statement.
Great. Thank you, Mike, and thanks to Jane and Mo and everyone who joined us here today for this conversation. I'm honored to serve as your council president here in Columbus and proud of the great work that we've done. You know, Columbus is a pretty special place, a place where I was born and raised and where our family had 47 foster brothers and sisters join us during my childhood. Give me special insight and perspective on the needs of children in our community, and very proud of the work that we've done to lift up children and families in neighborhoods throughout our city. We have the fastest growing economy in the Midwest, lowest unemployment in decades, AAA bond rating from all three rating agencies, the largest city in the country to have such a rating. But we know that not every family in every neighborhood is sharing in our success. And so my focus as mayor, working with leaders from across the aisle and across this city, will be to focus on making sure that every family is sharing in our success.
Sheriff.
Thanks for sponsoring this forum. Thank all of our sponsors here today. My name is Zach Scott, and I got into this race because I have a simple platform. It's about jobs, education, and safety and stronger neighborhoods. I've spent 30-some years in law enforcement, and I know our neighborhoods. I'm very familiar with what's going on. We do have a lot of success here in Columbus, but unfortunately, a lot of people are not sharing in that success. So when I decided to get in the race, it was something that I felt very passionate about because I want to see all of our citizens in Columbus get an opportunity to actually raise themselves up. Unfortunately, during this race, we've had other situation that's come up which deals with ethics violations, it deals with scandals, it deals with FBI corruption investigation. This type of stuff can actually hurt our successes. I'm concerned about businesses that want to come here, jobs, if we ever want to pass another new levy. I think it was an indictment on us the last time when we had the situation with our school levy. So those type of things concern me. I want to protect the reputation and make sure that the City of Columbus is really moving forward in all areas.
All right, thank you. We'll get to many of those topics as the forum progresses. Let's start with leadership experience. And President Ginther, you've been on City Council, you've been president of the City Council, you were on the school board before that, but you've never been the executive in charge of an organization. What experience do you have that you can use to run a city with $1 billion budget?
You know, one of the things that I'm really proud of as council president is that not only do we have oversight for the council budget and the office of the 7 independently elected council members, but also the city clerk's office, the city treasurer's office, and our policy office. And what I'm most proud of is every year that I've served as council president, we've returned money from our city council budget to the general fund to help with carryover and for planning for the future. All that being done while, you know, investing in key priorities like expanding preschool to 500 children. 500 4-year-olds now have access to high quality preschool opportunities in the city of Columbus. We've now reopened all of the recreation centers that we had closed during the Great Recession. And our city is on track to continue to attract good, high-paying jobs that people can support their families on. So fiscal discipline is important. And one of the things, as you know, that we committed to back in 2009 wasn't just to ask people to raise their taxes, but to make an unprecedented investment in economic development and restore the rainy day fund, a $75 million balance
but what
by
Zach Scott's
2018.
going to bring up is that you were a member of council, you voted on these things, you didn't actually have the hands-on running of the city. How do you, preemptively, how do you respond to that?
I just have, but I'll do it again, and that is that ever since I've been council president, I am responsible for the budget for council members, the city treasurer's office, the clerk's office, and our policy office. And every year, we've managed that budget and returned money to the general fund.
How big is that budget?
It's an inclusive budget that includes probably several $1 million, including, you know, we look at the city treasurer, you look at the clerk's office, the policy office, and the office of the council as a whole. Okay. That's the type of leadership I've taken, but also we are going to meet our goal of having a $75 million balance in the rainy day fund a year early.
Let's get to Zach
because
Scott's
of council's
experience.
leadership and commitment
You run
to
the
that.
Sheriff's Department, which is a large department, but it's focused on really one thing, that's public safety, police protection, the jail, courthouse security, that kind of thing. What experience do you have that can run a nearly $1 billion city budget that has many agencies?
Well, I think the key to that is leadership experience, being able to take several different divisions, which we have also a real estate division involved in the development with a new jail. We just finished up a new training academy. So it's a variety of different issues that the sheriff actually has to deal with. It's not just pushing a cruiser around. So for one day I could be dealing with anything from the court proceedings to legal issues to investigations. It goes on and on and on into real estate stuff. So I think, but the key is leadership, is actually being able to put plans together, op plans, which I've done my entire career. We put plans together. And then you go out and execute those plans. And then once you've executed, you look at your results. So I think the key here is to make sure that we have someone who's done leadership before, been in that position, had the opportunity to put a vision together, put a real plan together with a large volume of people. No disrespect to Mr. Ginther, but you know, like 1,100 employees. That's no easy task when you're talking about that many individuals that you have to make sure we're all moving in the same direction. And it has to be done to the City of Columbus with their 9,500 employees they have over there. So the key is experienced leadership and knowing when the pitfalls are, and to make sure that we all move direction of our, I guess, our collective goal.
Let's talk about, you mentioned the 2009 income tax increase, President Ginther. You were the chief advocate for that income tax during that campaign. Thanks to that tax increase and the recovering economy, the city's income tax revenues are about 50% higher than they were in 2009. The projections were that the income tax would generate $100 million more per year. They're generating $193 million more per year. So that's a lot more tax money, a 50% increase in tax revenue from income taxpayers. What specific service increases can taxpayers point to say they're getting their money's worth from that increase?
Well, one of the things that we committed to in 2009 was asking for additional revenue to protect basic city services, make an unprecedented investment in economic development, and we've done that through public-private partnership into 2020 and working with Jobs Ohio. We've reaped huge benefits and gains from that collective public-private investment. One of the other things that we've done and committed to was restoring the rainy day fund, but also reforming city government. So we made a commitment to put in place recommendations from the Economic Advisory Committee to realize $100 million worth of savings by 2020. Currently, we're on track to save $144 million for the people of Columbus, working with our collective bargaining units through the collective bargaining process. A couple of key things. I had already mentioned that we've reopened all of the rec centers that were closed before the Great Recession, making very difficult decisions. We have restored investments into public health, particularly our visiting nurses and the neighborhood outreach work, the critically important work that our public health staff. Obviously, recycling program is now in place for the first time in the city's history. We have curbside recycling, and another first for the city of Columbus. As I had mentioned earlier, 500 4-year-olds have access to high-quality preschool now for the first time in the city's history. So it's important when you're dealing with these things to also keep in context that we've lost roughly $50 million a year based on reforms and changes and cuts at the state level. We look at the slashing in half of the local government fund, the elimination of the estate tax, the commercial activity tax phasing in faster, personal property tangible tax going away. All those things collectively have impacted us negatively to the tune of $50 million.
Sheriff Scott, there's no Republican in this race. You're both Democrats. If there were a Republican in the race, she or he would likely say, you know, taxes are too high, we need to cut the city budget. Neither of you are talking about cutting the city budget or lowering taxes. Is there no place in the city budget that you can identify that should be cut?
One of my platforms, I would like to have open checkbook. A lot of the statistics Mr. Ginther is rattling off could be accurate, could not be accurate. I don't know. We don't have a lot of transparency when it comes to exactly seeing where these monies are in an open checkbook form. So would it be something I would like to see us roll back? I think it would be something that I would consider. I would like to look at it. But what we have to do is we have to look and see where all the money is going and make sure that the statistics that he's saying are actually valid statistics. So more transparency is something I'd like to see. And hopefully we'll get to that at some point.
Can I answer
Sure.
there, Mike? The Sheriff and I agree on this, and thanks to former Treasurer Boyce, now State Representative and State Treasurer Mandel, Auditor Doran has already given them all the data they need at the Ohio Treasurer's Office, and I think it's just going to be a matter of weeks before what the Sheriff's talked about will be a reality. The auditor's already committed to make that happen.
Okay, Zach, Scott, you talk about jobs, and you say you want to bring manufacturing jobs back to the neighborhoods. Here's what you're up against. Ohio has lost more than 300,000 manufacturing jobs since the year 2000. We've gained some back in recent years, but experts say at our current pace of gaining new jobs, it'll take us 45 years to gain back all the manufacturing jobs we lost from 2000 to today. How can you, as mayor, counteract that tide?
Well, manufacturing and advanced manufacturing jobs too is what I'd like to see us bring back. We have a tremendous amount of great companies here in the Columbus area. And they have nexuses to other companies that we could encourage them to actually bring those jobs back here. It's a matter of just going out there and getting them, because I do see throughout the state of Ohio there are some coming back here in different forms. So what I would like to see us do to be more aggressive to bring them to the Columbus neighborhoods like it used to be. I don't think it's an impossible task. It's going to be a difficult task, but one of the things that we have not been doing is for the last decade or so, there's no vocational training. Everything's been set up to where you either go to college or there's not a lot more for you to do here. So that's what's created these poverty rates, our 20%, 23% poverty rate with 17% working poor. No one's going to train a workforce that would actually encourage them to be here. So we got to get into the schools. We've got to get some vocational training in the neighborhoods. So that way, when these different companies can see that we actually have a workforce that's here and that's trained to ready to move here. So I think that's the number one thing we have to focus on.
President Ginther, how do you bring good blue-collar manufacturing jobs back to Columbus? We're doing okay on the white-collar jobs, service jobs, there's plenty of them. How do we get those manufacturing jobs? What's your plan for that?
Well, it's going to take a concerted effort, and one of the things that we've been so focused on, and you can look at Columbus Castings, which is hiring 500 people right now that are going to pay folks $16 to $26 an hour. Folks just need a GED. They don't need any additional training. There are a number of restored citizens, ex-offenders, that are being hired at Columbus Castings. That's a great opportunity to help revitalize and really engage with all the other investment that's taking place up and down Parsons Avenue and the expansion of Nationwide Children's Hospital. One of the other very successful programs that we've entered into is FastPath with Columbus State Community College, where we're actually training workers for specific jobs. They will know after a 6-week or 6-month program what job they'll have, what the pay will be, and what the benefits are. And we've got some great conversations that have already started with Rogue Fitness that is moving its headquarters and a major facility into Milo Grogan. So we're going to continue to build on those opportunities for people so that everybody can share in the success story that is Columbus. I do believe, and actually there was a phenomenal Metropolitan Club session on apprenticeship and vocational education earlier this year. And I think we have a great opportunity as a city in working with partners at COWIC and others in workforce development. We can become the apprenticeship capital of the Midwest and take great lessons from Germany and other places around this country that have decided, you know, I think for the longest time, the educational establishment, and since I'm a former school board member, I got to take part of that rap, has looked down our nose at vocational education and apprenticeship. And there are many ways to the middle class. And if we want to have the largest middle class of any city our size in the country, we've got to give pathways through apprenticeship, vocational education, and 2- and 4-year degrees.
Along the same lines, and I want to get both of your takes on this, we have added jobs in recent years. The unemployment rate is low. The economy appears strong, but one study ranks Columbus second to last in the country in the wage gap, the difference between the high income and low income. Our poverty rate is at or near the worst level compared to cities our size. You both have plans to try to fix the problem, but to fix a problem, you have to identify what the problem is first. So, Zach Scott, what do you think is contributing to this wage gap in the city?
Jobs and education. It's simple. I mean, Mr. Coleman gets his United Way video leadership 2014, and he says for the last decade, poverty's went up 70%. That's his words. And it's all about jobs, and it's all about education. So what we've had for the last decade is a situation where we're looking for these jobs, and we got people that have jobs because we can't fill the jobs. I mean, the Columbus Dispatch came out and said 30-some. Andy says it's 34,000 jobs that can't get filled. Okay, he may be right. But we've had a disconnect between our schools, making sure the kids are going on a path that they can actually obtain good work. That's been going on for the last decade. So I guess back it again, why do we have to let it get to a position where it's almost like, you know, it's a crisis level? Now, homelessness is going down throughout the country by 15%. In Columbus, it's been going up by 7.6. Where have the leaders been? Now we're talking about, you know, we're talking about the income tax rates, and we're third or so, or we can argue third or fifth highest in the country. In the country. Some of this stuff is like, it could have been addressed if we'd been a decade looking at the actual education situation and making sure we're trying to fight for those jobs. Now today we're fighting for those jobs. Where's the leadership been? Leadership is something you have to look on the horizon and see what's coming. That's what leaders do, instead of being, I guess, complacent. You have to know what's around the corner and make sure that you're preparing for that type of stuff. And they've not done it, and now we're dealing with it today.
Mr. Ginther, the causes of the wage gap and the high.
Well, I mean, as you know, Mike, there are two different types of poverty. You have, you know, generational poverty, where families have been struggling to put food on the table, have a safe place over their head for multiple generations. And there are lots of different contributing factors and challenges associated with that. But you also have a lot of folks, because of what took place, you know, with the Great Recession and the amount of homes that were lost and foreclosed upon and credit destroyed for many working class and middle class people. They have some very different challenges, and the roots of their poverty and their sudden crisis are very different from families who have lived in poverty for generations. That's why I'm such a big believer in making pre-K available to every 4-year-old in the city of Columbus. That's why I think we need additional after-school programs and summer learning opportunities for our young people, so they have safe places that they can gather and learn and continue to grow and develop. But that's why I believe so passionately in expanding the Restoration Academy for restored citizens. We have the second highest number of citizens coming back from the criminal justice system into our community in the state of Ohio. We can either put them back in the revolving door that has existed for decades in the criminal justice system, or we can help them help themselves by giving them the appropriate job training and a second chance to contribute back to their neighborhoods. So there are lots of different contributing factors to poverty, and some of the things that we've got to deal with and address is continue to give folks different pathways, maybe not necessarily the pathway you or I took. Maybe it's through an apprenticeship program. Maybe it's through vocational education. Maybe it's pushing more and more companies to hire restored citizens. Our restored citizens that work for the city of Columbus are some of our best employees because nobody's given them any trust or a second chance in decades, and they're some of the best employees we have working for us at the city of Columbus.
Moving on, the story that has hung over this campaign since at least June is the red light camera investigation. Andrew Ginther, you say the guilty plea of lobbyist John Rayfield on the extortion charge completely vindicates you. But the Justice Department says the investigation continues. The FBI says the plea should not be construed as a reflection on the guilt or innocence of any other individual. What do you say to voters who fear that something will come out after the election, something else will come out that implicates you?
Well, I tell them what I shared with the community back in June, and that is never been a person of interest or subject to this investigation. Like dozens of other people in the community, we were asked for information regarding the investigation, and we worked with the federal government to bring people to justice, and I'm glad that that has moved forward. What I'll tell the people of Columbus is that, over the last 15 years as a candidate and office holder, I've woken up every day putting families first and neighborhoods is my top priority. And I will continue to do that and serve this community in the future because of that trust and confidence they have in me.
So basically, the key to this thing is the campaign donation that allegedly went through Red Flex to John Rayfield, to the Democratic Party, to your campaign committee. You say that didn't happen. You didn't know about it. What is your official stance on that key piece of this story?
Well, we've talked about it several times, and I never received a contribution from Red Flex. We did ask for contribution. That was not given. Mr. Rayfield gave money to the State Democratic Party, and the State Democratic Party gave me, I think, $35,000 in 2011 when I served as council president, and I was the chief fundraiser for our council caucus. The Ohio Democratic Party, believe it or not, is in the business of electing Democrats. And they give a lot of money right around the elections, and they give a lot of money right before big campaign finance deadlines. And believe it or not, as a loyal, dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, I've raised and given $150,000 to the Ohio Democratic Party since 2011.
You did not know what was going on.
I have no control over who the Ohio Democratic Party gives to.
Okay.
Well, and the Ohio hold on, Mike.
All right.
You're asking these questions. I deserve the opportunity to give some answers.
All right.
And that is the Ohio Democratic Party has a complete separate process in making their determinations on who they contribute to. And I never solicited the Ohio Democratic Party for money. They helped us, and they helped other Democratic candidates in 2011. The Ohio Democratic Party is helping me today send mailers and get out sample ballots to Democrats in this community. So it is what it is.
Zach Scott?
Yeah, I've been involved.
Andrew Ginther has not been named in any court documents. He has not been charged. These are just allegations. Doesn't he deserve the innocent until proven guilty, or at least the innocent until charged, benefit of the doubt?
Well, I think everyone deserves that, but we have to look at some circumstances and facts here. And I think if you look at the Chicago situation, it was playing out where Mr. Rosenberg decided to go ahead and plead guilty to his situation. And that's been unfolding from Karen Red. And first of all, Karen Finley and all that was going on. I never implicated Mr. Ginther. That came from a whole different set of groups. Now, he wants to say that I'm throwing that out there all the time, but that was a whole different group. Now, Mr. Ginther, we know for a fact, solicited Mr. Rosenberg. We know that. We know that he also met with him when he was the chair of the Safety Committee in 2009. We know that after he met with him, that the Red Flex contract fees doubled. Do we know for a fact? Well, here's another thing. In 30 years of me being in law enforcement, I've never seen the FBI or the DOJ ever come out and when someone has a press release that says how innocent they are, to actually put a press release out to almost contradict what that just happened. That has never happened. So these type of situations going, I don't know if he's guilty or not. I think I was this morning at Crime Stoppers. We had Angela Byers get up and told everybody several times the Red Flex investigation is still very much ongoing. So here's the sad thing. If he is guilty, don't know if he is, it is such a disservice because he has a lot of good followers out there, people who are trusting him. And if this is, he's got to be the most selfish man I've ever seen in my life if he's guilty, and he knows that.
Mr. Ginther, I'll let you respond if you wish.
I think the sheriff's statement speaks for itself.
Moving on to the other issue that's come up, and that is the use of campaign funds for attending football games. And I'll start with you, Sheriff Scott, and I'll ask you both to respond. Mr. Ginther has been criticized for using campaign funds for a trip to Indianapolis to see the Buckeyes play in the Big Ten championship. But a review of your campaign finance expenditures show that for the past few years, you've bought season tickets to the Ohio State University, season tickets to the football team. Should campaign funds, I know it's legal, and it's absolutely 100% legal, but should campaign funds be used to buy football tickets?
My football tickets I give out to volunteers. I have about 120-some deputies that are working, so I rarely ever actually sit and watch a game at any point. I'm usually walking through the stadium, I'm checking the parking lots, I go up to the press box, and I'm checking and making sure that everybody's doing their job. So it depends how you're using them. Obviously, if you're using them like Mr. Ginther used them, then there's an issue with that. Mr. Ginther says he paid for his tickets. Well, actually, his campaign paid for them, but it didn't really pay the real price. And again, I mean, I'm not investigating him. The Ohio Ethics Commission is investigating him, not me. So it's falling back to all the sheriffs just saying stuff again. It's not me, dude. It's Ohio Ethics Commission is actually investigating you as you're running for mayor.
I'll let you respond, but also, should campaign funds be used for entertainment purposes such as that?
Well, just as the sheriff, and I'm sure every member of the state legislature and elected officials across the state use campaign funds to purchase OSU tickets at face value at the ticket cost. We donate those tickets, give them to staff, volunteers, friends of, and supporters of the campaign. So I do believe it's an appropriate use of campaign dollars. Charities use those tickets to help raise money, and they're grateful for those tickets when they've been given to them. I believe, it's really important for the people of Columbus to know who's giving and who's funding campaigns. As you all know, I was attacked by dirty secret money in the primary of the Koch brothers and Americans for Prosperity. And the people of Columbus overwhelmingly supported a charter amendment last year, giving us the authority and the ability to ask for additional campaign finance disclosure from candidates that are running for local office. We've put in place prohibitions on using city funds for political purposes and increased our ethics standards above state guidelines at the City of Columbus. And Councilmember Klein is leading the way and working with Herb Asher, Mike Curtin, and others to put in place some of the toughest ethics laws in the state of Ohio. There'll be additional ethics financial disclosure statements that are issued to the public, as well as additional campaign finance reports. The crazy part about this election is the sheriff and I, you won't know what we have raised from the middle of May until tomorrow. So this entire campaign season, who's been funding his campaign and my campaign. I think that's too long, and it leaves the people of Columbus in the dark. And so we think there ought to be additional disclosure so the people of Columbus can make informed decisions about the candidates for office.
Sheriff, I'll let you respond with you because you've proposed ethics reforms as well.
We did. We also want to put training in place for anyone who's doing contracts with Columbus. We want to put, their policy was about actually the employees also taking ethics training. We wanted to bar any of these lobbyists from sitting on commissions and these boards. We actually put some really strict ethics policies in place. Now, Mr. Ginther's policies, you can still run around with lobbyists. You can still take trips. You just got to disclose it. Ours was, we don't want you taking any. Is it kind of extreme? Yeah, it is, I guess. But when you have this type of situation going on, where you start losing the trust of the community, we got to bring back the voters, the citizens of Columbus, their trust in government. And one of the ways you do that is you take extreme measures. And so that's why we put our ethics in place, to make sure that you're not supposed to take anything from these individuals anymore, and they just make it simple.
Neither of your plans call for limits on campaign donations. The federal government limits individual donations at $2,700. The state of Ohio limits individual donations at about $12,000. Zach Scott, you've received one donation of $50,000. Mr. Ginther, you've received donations. You haven't got a 50 grand one, but you've got 10 grand and 15 grand donations. Shouldn't there be a limit on the number that one person can give to the mayor's campaign? Yeah, I'll ask you, Mr. Ginther.
You know, this is a challenging issue to deal with in a post-Citizens United world. And the city attorney and I have talked about this several different times, and he is very concerned about putting limits in place, our legal standing, our ability to do that based on that ruling. He's a lawyer, I'm not, so I trust him, and he's been elected by the people in this community for probably 40 years. So that's why I'm such a big proponent about reporting and transparency. You know, the people of Columbus know what's best for them and their families. And if they know who's funding campaigns, they can make determinations on their own about whether or not a candidate is doing something for campaign contributions, or they're doing it because it's the right thing to do for the community. So I'm a big believer in disclosure and transparency about who is funding municipal campaigns.
Mr. Sheriff Scott?
I have no problem with what Mr. Ginther just said, but I will throw this in here. If we limit it, the odds are that people who want to run for office or have a voice in it won't have an option, won't have an opportunity. Let's give this example. The Democratic Party, you know, they didn't want me to run at some point, at least some members of them didn't. So what you do is, if you limit individuals that can actually give, that means the parties, whether it be Republican, whether it be Democrat, whether it be PACs, whether it be special interests, will start to control every candidate that runs. And that's the last thing we want. We want people, I agree, we need more transparency. We probably need more reporting dates. That's fine. But we don't want the big parties to shut down anybody that wants to have a shot at running. And that's, if we change it and put these limits that you're suggesting, then the parties will control everything, and the opportunity for the little man, so to speak, to be able to have that opportunity, or woman, won't have that opportunity anymore. So that's why I would probably not support that.
I'm going to ask one more question, then we'll take the questions from the audience. Sheriff Scott, I'd like to nail down your position on police body cameras. That's something that Mr. Ginther has fully supported. He wants every cop to have one by this time next year. When he came out with his plan in September, you accused him of being a little late to call for body cameras. Last week on my show, you said you would have no problem with the body cams if the privacy concerns were addressed. Last night on Channel 10, you said you don't support Andrew Ginther's plan. So bottom line, should police have body cameras?
Well, okay, first of all, Mr. Ginther's plan was, it was one of those things he threw out there to get some votes. Let's just be honest what it was. He didn't invite the chief. He didn't invite Jason Pappas from Labor. He jumped out there just to get some votes real quick. I don't believe in rushing into situations unless we do some thorough investigation of it first. And that's what we've been doing. Law enforcement's been doing it. The Buckeye State Sheriff's Association's been doing it. Some of the areas have been having problems when it comes to the body camera becomes like talking to the news immediately. If you're wearing it, it's going to cause issues with people wanting to come up and talk about crimes. If you have a burglary and an officer goes into your house, everything that's in your house is now seen by everyone. They have the right to that. So I think Kevin Boyce is here, and I think Grossman's working on it. They're trying to change some of the public records requests so that way it gives you some privacy. I don't believe in putting our citizens in jeopardy or at risk because we want to rush to a plan. Are body cameras coming? Yes. We got to figure out how to pay for them. Again, we're back to understanding how budgets run And you can't just throw out there, I'm going to come up with $14 million all of a sudden like that. That was silly. Okay, that's what I'd said about that. But are they coming? Yes, at some point they're going to come. I just want to make sure we implement them properly. That's all I've been saying.
Mr. Ginther, where does this drive for body cameras come from? We haven't, thankfully, we haven't had an incident here in Columbus similar to Cincinnati, say, which was captured on a body cam. But we haven't had those kind of incidents like in Charleston. What is driving your desire to have this?
It's the people of Columbus. And the people of Columbus know that this is a very special place. But we're not so remarkable or special that there couldn't be a situation, involving a police-involved shooting where the community's trust and the credibility of law enforcement would be put under fire. I believe that the people of Columbus have been very clear, and the neighborhood and community leaders that I've met with and talked with, law enforcement, as well as faith leaders, have all been very clear. One of our opponents in the primary election, James Ragland, and I talked about this several times this summer, and it's one of the major reasons he's endorsed my campaign, and we're moving forward together to talk about these issues. We have the best division of police in the country, and the way we remain the best is that we join 1/3 of police departments in the country that already are using body cameras. This is already quickly becoming a best practice in law enforcement. The way we continue to lead and be the best is to make sure that we're protecting that sacred bond and connection between a people and their law enforcement. Folks that are sworn officers in our community have a power that I don't have, the mayor, the governor, and the president don't have. They can stop, detain, question, and arrest. And so it's absolutely critical that we protect that sacred obligation and bond and commitment between law enforcement and the community. I think body cameras.
I want to get to the audience questions. I'm going to let Zach Scott respond to this, then we'll get to the audience questions.
The only thing I would say to that is that he's calling them best practices. There's no law enforcement agencies that accreditations are saying these are best practices. What Mr. Ginther is saying is best practices. I've talked to several different communities. I talked with Tammy Fournier, who is for Black Lives Matter, and the first thing I said, I guess we want to talk about body cameras, and she was like, who said I want body cameras? I'm going around the different neighborhoods, and they want rec centers. They want opportunities for their kids to stay out of trouble because they understand that we don't have an unlimited amount of resources when it comes to this money. So are they coming? Yeah, we're going to have to figure out how to pay for those body cameras, and we got to have the best policy in place to protect the citizens, not rush to some initiative for other purposes.
We can either lead or study, and it's time for the city of Columbus to lead and get it done.
Yeah.
Questions from the audience, please.
Thanks. This is a question from Becky Westerfelt. What's your vision for each of you on creating opportunities for the neediest members in our community?
Let's start with Sheriff Scott.
Vocational training. We have a lot of social programs, and they're good, but I want to see the social program I like the best. Let's just get everybody a job. Get them opportunity. Find out, like Columbus State does have a lot of stuff that's going on. Their programs are really good, but we need to expand it. DeVry's got some stuff going on. We need to expand that. There's a lot of universities out there. We have so many universities here that we could find those different levels of those skills and to continue to build on those to give people jobs. That's the number one thing that I'll be focusing on to make sure that we have jobs for our communities.
Mr. Ginther, helping the low-income folks in the city.
Well, I think one of the things that we have continued to see develop is coalitions that are being built to address some of these issues. You know, there's a Thrive group that has been started by former President Matt Habash, who heads up the food bank, and Janet Jackson, the United Way, talking about how we can stabilize families and help the working poor in particular, provide the safe, affordable housing, food on the table for their families, and be able to really contribute and enroot themselves and invest themselves in their neighborhoods. It's one of the big reasons I support universal pre-K for young people, high quality learning opportunities for young people in our community. I think that's one of the best ways for them to start their K through 12 education. And I'm a big supporter of after school and summer learning opportunities that we've talked about before. One of the things that we have to take on is the benefits cliff. I mean, people who work hard and play by the rules, if they make just a couple dollars more an hour, they're likely to lose housing vouchers, child care subsidies, transportation vouchers. So in essence, it's a couple of dollars more an hour for an hourly worker in this community. It could cost them $40,000 worth of benefits. That's not right. And we ought to be able to put, in partnership with this governor and our outstanding county commissioners, a way for us to support families and give them pathways from poverty to the middle class.
Next question.
I'm Carol Looper, and I'm asking a question for T. Street. What is your position on mayoral control of Columbus City Schools? If you support mayoral control, please explain your qualifications and the efficacy of such a position.
We'll start with you, Mr. Ginther, on this one.
Appreciate the question. This is a big difference, a stark contrast between my opponent and I. I plan on being partner in chief to the school district. I think Dr. Good and the people that you actually elected to serve on the Board of Education know best about where we're headed as a district, and that Dr. Good has made a lot of great reforms and great strides. I think we have an outstanding member of the Board of Education here today, and Mary Jo Hudson. It's important for us to re-elect her to serve on the Board of Education and give her the support and the colleagues she deserves to continue doing a great job on behalf of the district. I am not an educational professional. I don't understand curriculum or pedagogy. Dr. Good has a team that does. I believe our role is to invest in early childhood opportunities, universal pre-K, after school and summer learning opportunities, because we know children in poverty in particular are disproportionately hurt by summer learning loss, the loss of an entire grading period during the summertime. And we have thousands and thousands of children in this community that need high quality summer learning opportunities so that they can make progress just like their middle class colleagues.
Sheriff, should the mayor run the schools?
Well, it's going on in some of the urban neighborhoods, but my plan is not to take over the schools. My plan was not to cut out teachers or parents, as Mr. Ginther has used in his ads. That's never my plan. My concern is, again, it's been going on for the last decade. We have training issues, we have jobs that we can't fill, and they should be coming from our high schools and our middle schools to getting our kids trained up. So my goal, well, most recently I just read an issue to where we have two different people, two different philosophies. We got a listening tour, we got the Education Commission. They're not even on the same page of what they think they should be doing. So my goal is to get a coalition of people from our business section, from our community leaders, to make sure the parents and teachers are sitting with us, and even students, to find out how we have to have a collective goal. We can't keep having one part has a goal and another part has a goal. We've got to get the same goal, and no one's doing that. No one's putting them together. I mean, when I'm reading, we got listening tours thinks we should do this, commission thinks we should do that. Kids are being lost by the days by us not having the same goal and moving forward. So I think the mayor needs to be part of saying, okay, we're putting a coalition together, this is our coalition, going to the school board and say, you've got to do this. This is our collective goal. You've got to make sure you institute it. You've got to make sure we're moving all in the right direction. And if that doesn't happen, then we have to take a different type of path. So my goal is not to take over the schools and cut people out. My goal is to actually get a collective vision to make us all move in the same direction, because right now, and for the past decade, we've not been moving in the right direction.
But if the mayor doesn't have the legal authority over the schools, how can, that's what's happening now. The mayor works with the school board, offers suggestions, and the school board can say, sorry.
How's that working now?
But are you advocating, and is it wrong, because there's been reports that you did advocate for mayoral control or more mayoral control over the school system?
What I would plan is we're going to take our ideas, take to the school board, and then at some point, if they refuse, don't want to do it, if it's not working, then at some point we'd have to put a form together, some type of reform that we all agree upon, and then you take it to the voters. The mayor can't take over the schools legally, okay? It has to be taken to a vote. Now, what is going on, no one wants to say it's Baltimore, Boston, LA, Oakland Park, New York, Cleveland. That's been going on in the last 3 to 5 years all over the country. And they're having success in varying degrees all over the country. That is actually going on. Now, I don't know what form we would use. I don't know what kind of reform. Maybe we don't even have to worry about reform. Maybe if we get enough of a coalition together and we get enough people moving in the right direction and we get the right teams, this is a moot issue, because we'll start moving in the right direction. But we got to have leadership that's actually saying, we're going to start moving in the right direction. We have to.
Okay. Next question, please.
Good afternoon, Yvonne Honeycutt. I'm asking this question on behalf of Kathy Fox. What position do each of the candidates have about whether the city should change to a ward system for city council?
Start with you, Sheriff.
I'm completely for a ward system. Ward system, we talk about how great Columbus is and its diversity. And it's right. We have great diversity here. But unfortunately, we just handpick who we want to sit on city council. We handpick them and then they get elected. People in our communities feel they've not had a voice in a very long time. And when you actually go to ward systems, Columbus is the 15th largest city in the country. The top 50 cities all over the country all have some type of ward system that they're using with pretty good success. 47, 48 have great success with it. Some have some of their issues. Now, if we'd had a ward system when it comes to the Rayfield situation, I don't think we'd have had the Rayfield situation. I think a ward would have prevented that. You don't have to raise as much money when you're running for these positions. And people actually get an opportunity in their community to have a voice, to sit at the table and have some input. And we cannot continue leaving these individuals out. They have a right to sit at the table. They have a right to be elected. And a ward system will give them that opportunity.
President Ginther.
I think everybody here knows my position on this issue. I've been very clear for a long period of time. I think the at-large system has made Columbus a very special place, because regardless of the room that I walk into in the city of Columbus, I work for those residents. I serve at the pleasure of those citizens. When you go away from that type of system, you just take a look at cities with wards across the country, and it becomes a Monday night horse trading session and NIMBY and everything else that goes along with having very narrow parochial interests. I have another couple of concerns about a ward system. Currently, we have a majority of women on Columbus City Council for the first time in our city's history. I would worry about the challenges as well as minority representation. Right now, we have 3 members of Columbus City Council that are African American, and I would be concerned about what districts would be drawn that could dilute minority representation on our council. So there are very serious challenges with respect to ward systems, not just becoming like a lot of other big cities with ward bosses, but also about minority and female representation.
I know you want to rebut, but I want to move on to something just a little bit different but related. One is, both of you are in your position now because you were first appointed. Sheriff Scott, you were appointed sheriff after Jim Carnes died. Andy Ginther, you replaced a vacant seat from the school committee. So, and you ran your first election in your current position with the benefits of incumbency. And that has been the pattern at City Hall, where city council members leave early, get replaced by council, and that person runs in the election with the benefit, basically raising money benefit of incumbency. Would you support a change in the charter or whatever it is to say, if someone leaves city council, there should be a special election where the field is level for new candidates? Mr. Ginther.
I wouldn't. We changed this rule some 20 or 30 years ago, because if someone left in the first year of their term, they weren't even on the ballot until the end of that term. So we created a change where you had to run for an unexpired term, and that's what Councilmember Hardin is doing this year. But I believe it's about 40% of the state legislature and about 1/3 of all the elected officials in Central Ohio. When you look at boards of education and you look at city councils and township trustees, folks leave. They have a family situation, they get a new job opportunity, they leave in the middle of their terms. And so all of those different bodies help to appoint replacements to serve, and the people have an opportunity to either extend that contract or end that contract through an election.
So it's just a coincidence this is the first time in 20 years we've actually had an open race for city council?
You know, if you look at, again, township trustees, the state legislature, all the other elected bodies that have legislative members, it's pretty consistent that, oftentimes people have opportunities, they leave office, and folks get replaced. So I think that it's something that we think is very important to have all 7 seats filled to make sure that the entire city of Columbus is being represented. And we'll continue to
I'll just finish on one thought that he said. He said, well, he's worried about minorities being cut out from the process. Minority groups want award systems. I'm talking to several different minority groups, and they absolutely want to have an opportunity to sit at the table. They don't want to be said who's going to sit at the table. They want the opportunity. And what a ward system will also do is make a representative be actually held accountable to their district and not to a special interest group, someone like John Rayfield.
Hi, Deb Hackathorn again. I have a question from LaToya Peterson of New Visions Group. What plans do you currently have for engaging more young professionals in the city and your administration? And specifically, do you have thoughts around engaging minority young professionals?
Sheriff Scott, we'll start with you on this one.
We have measures in place to actually have more minority contracts. They've not been enforced. We have also had a lot of millennials that have moved here because of the art, entertainment, walkability. So we are engaging a lot from the universities. The problem we're going to run into here at some point down the road is when they get married and have kids, they're going to want to leave Columbus because, again, we're back to addressing those school issues. We've got to get our schools up to speed where they need to be. If we can make sure that we have good public school systems, we won't be losing those millennials. So we have some procedures are in place. Some of it's already moving in the right direction, but we got to make sure we maintain and keep those individuals that want to stay in the Columbus district and not move to the suburbs like what's been going on for quite a while. And just make sure we enforce what we already have in place, which has not been enforced. No one's, I guess, minding the store again.
Mr. Ginther, young professionals.
So one of the great parts about dealing with young professionals is they've totally turned economic development on its head. So you have folks leaving college now and actually picking cities where they want to live before they even start looking for a job. And so when I'm asked about what bike trails and mass transit and the ideas around mass transit, walkability and a thriving arts and cultural scene, what that has to do with economic development, I say everything. 16,000 people a day, 16,000 boomers a day will retire every year for the next 15 years in this country. So the battle for our economic security for the future is making sure that we get a disproportionate amount of young professionals to choose Columbus as home. And it's a place where we have a great opportunity and a great foundation to build on as long as we continue to invest in the quality of life of our neighborhoods, that we remain an open and smart city that embrace diversity and tolerance and welcoming people not only from all over the state and the country, but all over the world. That's what sets us apart, and having a focus on that. And I think we have a great opportunity around entrepreneurship, particularly with young professionals. This city is ready to bust wide open with thriving entrepreneurs from all walks of life. And I think that's another key strategy for us moving ahead.
One more question, then we'll get to closing statements.
This is a question from Lucy Wolf, Realtor. The city of Columbus has lots of vacant houses that are victims of property crime. What would you do to help those homeowners whose houses are vandalized, either as they sit vacant or are in the process of being sold?
Mr. Ginther, start with you.
Well, I think we have more work to be done. I know that we have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10,000 vacant and abandoned properties, and we have a couple of neighborhoods that were disproportionately hit by the Great Recession. The west side, Hilltop, Linden, and the south side. We've been able to tackle over the last 8 years 2,000 of those units, but we have more work that needs to be done. I think there's going to be a great opportunity. I was with the Alliance for Affordable Housing just yesterday at the Reeb Avenue Center, and we collectively are building a coalition to extend and increase the number of affordable homes, high-quality affordable homes and apartments to folks in this community. Our goal, we're about 54,000 units short right now. Our goal is to cut that in half over the next 10 years. And I think one of the ways that we can do that is making better use of both the county and the city land bank, get properties up to code, make landlords sign on to a Bill of Rights and a certain level of criteria that they're going to provide for their tenants. Because the average cost for a family of four for a two-bedroom apartment right now in the city of Columbus is $811 a month. $811 a month. So we have the working poor spending over 50% of their income in just trying to provide a decent place to live. And so that's the work that we've got ahead of us with respect to vacant and abandoned properties.
Sheriff Scott?
A lot of the funding is starting to run out concerning being able to demolish these abandoned houses. So we're going to have to get some public and private partnerships to get together to actually address these issues. I know there's a guy on the Hilltop that was actually buying them and tearing it down himself, and that's horrible. So we need to repurpose these properties. We need to think about green space for these properties. Under my plan, I'm still trying to figure out a way to make sure that we use those properties for future business sites. So that way, I want to see businesses try to get back into our neighborhood. So There's some things we have to do, but obviously the first thing we have to do is figure out where the funding is going to come from, since how this funding is starting to dry up. And again, it's going to be public and private partnerships that we're going to have to depend on to make sure they help us.
All right, and with that, we'll leave it to the candidates to have their closing statements, 30 seconds. Andrew Ginther, by coin flip, you go first.
Well, thanks again for joining us here today. I want to thank some of the co-chairs of my campaign. State Representative Boyce is here, Mary Jo Hudson that I had mentioned earlier, and a very, very special guest, former County Commissioner and Council Member Dorothy Teeter, who is heading up our Republicans for Ginther effort. It's all right, give her a round of applause. Two of the other Republicans for Ginther had a 1:48 tea time at Scarlett, so they had to leave early, and we're jealous of that. But this is our final debate. This is our final debate. And so with my last 5 or 10 seconds, I'm going to thank Zach Scott for running for mayor. I want to thank him for putting forth a vision and giving you clear choices. The people of Columbus deserve to have choices, and I appreciate him running. And we know that not people run, families run. And so at this moment, I'd like to use my last couple of seconds to thank the Scott family for supporting the sheriff to offer himself forth as a candidate.
Well, thank you, Andy. That's very nice.
Just
Very nice. Thank you all for joining us here. And I appreciate the opportunity to share our vision. I will say this has been a unique experience. I do like Mr. Ginther. If people think that we don't like each other, I actually do like him. We just have a very different idea of leadership philosophies. And I look forward to the next couple of weeks, because we're both going to be super busy out there banging on doors. And I hope you just take the time, look at the facts, look at what's going on, look where we need to keep going. Columbus is a great town, very successful. We need leadership to make sure that it's going to continue to be successful. So I encourage you all to make sure you get out and vote, and look forward to seeing you around on the trail. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks to the candidates. Appreciate it. Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
Well, we know you enjoyed today's forum. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your vision about Columbus. Join me in thanking our sponsors, Hannah News, Ohio Farm Bureau Federation, Franklin County Farm Bureau, and Carlisle, Pacton, and Murphy. And to these gentlemen, we say thank you once again.